women experience high rates of gender-based harassment. This is why separate women's leagues were formed, but ultimately met with controversy. To clearly understand the role of women in esports, we need to take a look at marketing.
It's only 10 manly calories, but it's what guys want, like this. Keep the romantic comedies and lady drinks. We're good. Dr. Pepper 10.
So creative. Marketing has always gender profiled a lot of things. For example, young boys are typically marketed with toys such as guns, robots, and also cars. But for women, it's mostly kitchen stuff, dolls. Nowadays though, it is less apparent. It's a little bit more equal. Most of gendered marketing is geared towards company and profitability, but in society as a whole, it's actually a little bit detrimental for gender identity, as the genders that are left out are feeling alienated. But what about the video game industry? Video games were marketed towards families, old, young, men, and women. This was the norm. But there was a turning point during the 1980s when the video game industry crashed. And one thing that these companies turned to was to market their products towards a certain gender, and you already know the rest.
It's portable, it's in stereo, and its games are interchangeable. Game Boy comes complete with batteries and the outrageous new game Tetris.
I think traditionally, if you go back like way long ago when video games were becoming popular and marketed, naturally boys were more inclined to ask their parents probably to buy a video game than the girls were. And I think obviously over time, especially in recent years, that's changed quite a bit.
90s gaming research suggests that boys played video games more frequently than girls, but both sexes actually showed equal interest in playing. But how about now?
To half with Alexi with the 4K!
They do seem to be a little bit comfortable on Haven.
Fancy!
Wow, that was quite an entry.
But this one team just shut everyone down. Women in 2023 accounted for 46% of gamers in the US. Those are high numbers. Men definitely also experience toxicity in-game, but women experience more gender-based harassment.
Personally, during my years, I haven't experienced any harsh discrimination in gaming or esports industry as a woman. I think it's probably because I have somehow established myself as a prominent figure early on. However, I've seen with my peers go through some level of discrimination, sexual harassment, even unfair treatment. Their male counterpart players in the team taking advantage of their presence, or even a CEO taking advantage of female content creators in that organization.
I guess I'm fortunate in my years in esports and gaming that I haven't experienced gender-based discrimination, but it's definitely is very, very rampant, right? Lots of times when I say I actually work in esports and gaming, people will automatically think that I'm a streamer because as far as they know, girl gamers are streamers or e-girls. And there just isn't as much visibility for women who are doing other things in the space, like working in league ops, working in data analysis, working in production, or working as a coach, or working in security.
I do want to answer that I did experience a bit of discrimination because I feel like a lot of people were looking at me when I go into meetings, when I walk into a room. I feel like I have to compensate myself with my work. I have to be the best at it every single day, just so people will look past the gender, because I feel like if I don't do my best, if I feel like I'm not at my 100%, I feel like people will use the gender card. People will use like the transition card of it. They will say na, kasi bakla ka naman, ganun, right? Reacting so emotional, etc. because of the hormones that I'm taking and stuff like that. It has been a very wild ride, if I'm being honest. For the most part, in the industry sense, those are the things that I fear and I experience every day. In general, they've been very respectful, they've been very kind, and I can't thank my Filipino and Southeast Asian esports industry a lot because of this.
And also, gaming is gender neutral. And no, I'm not talking about bathrooms. But even with all of that, Why isn't there as many women in esports?
I see it as I think most of them just don't want the backlash and the hate from being in the spotlight and the negative comments that they know they will receive, because the esports fandom can be really toxic at times. I don't think it has to do with female players just not existing. It's like they don't want to go through that. Even though they have such a love and a passion for this game and for competing, the reason that they don't want to compete at a higher level is they don't want this kind of spotlight, because they know the negativity that's going to come from it.
So I believe I'll touch on two key elements. First, the entry market to competitive is very saturated with already established male-dominated teams, making it difficult for women to break through. They're already comfortable with the teams that they have, so like, if it works and it's not broken, there's no need to fix it, type of thing. Second, many teams and orgs don't want to risk introducing women into their team for the possibility of men flirting with women or establishing a relationship with them. Their fear that men won't take the esports scene or the competitive scene seriously if this were to happen.
And it's a new thing right now that video games have become a normal thing that people of all genders are able to play it, but before it's not the case. And I feel like it played the factor as to why there's not a lot of women in competitive gaming, because there's no opportunity for them to be playing for the longest time. And as someone who's transitioning, again, the first reaction I had was I was very, very happy, because I was able to see myself looking up to these women and these trans women as well. It's unfair for them to be scrutinized this way, because no one will transition just to play in a video game tournament. It's just cut the crap. For a lot of trans women, we've been having a hard time surviving day to day and having video games as one of our only escapes in life. And actually being good at it, for some people, allows us to have a voice, be seen. This is why things like Game Changers and Impact are very, very important in the first place.
Men have always had a head start in terms of any industry, not just gaming. They've had decades to become good players. And only recently did we see a rise of female players due to the pandemic, and that resulted to female pro players increasing as well. But why did we even need Game Changers to begin with?
This is an initiative designed to provide experience and a spotlight to elevate the women in the Valorant competitive community.
The bomb dropped in the open. Gabby, the only one remaining, and Elizabeth aces them all.
Game Changers was absolutely amazing. Game Changers was absolutely amazing. So when I arrived, all I kept hearing people say was that Game Changers is the best event of the year. It's so amazing. This is my favorite event ever. And I thought at first that, maybe people were exaggerating. I didn't understand yet, but they really honestly meant it. Everybody was just so incredibly amazing. And there was the spirit of, it's our time. We're gonna kill it. All of the girls bond immediately, but beyond language barriers even. The entire event was just so uplifting and encouraging and empowering. And I hope the viewers were able, to see that, and we're able to see what we can do when we are unburdened and unleashed.
Of Orangutan, they have to fight against Alexi though. The defuse is looking to get stuck halfway down the aftershock into play. Alexi! Oh my goodness! How does she do it yet again?
I was able to interview Alexi Francisco, who was previously in Team SMG during the Valorant Game Changers last year. And this is what she said. I experienced so much sexism and gender discrimination even before I went pro. Some guys are even gonna say, go back to the kitchen, uninstall Valorant, all you females are useless, etc. But I'm not that easily getting affected by that because I know in myself that I can do better than them. Game Changers brought in a viewership of 294,000, 50,000 more than the previous Game Changers. See what happens when you include more than half the population? So yeah, you better include us. We are now realizing that you should not leave out any gender just because it's just so much better economically. More of the population that you capture means more viewership, more money. Hi, I like money. And you do too. One of the most important players in helping create a safe space for women in the esports industry are, well, men.
It's everybody's responsibility to make sure that there is a safe space for each other. As things continue to change, it's very important that even if you have men on the higher parts of this ladder or whatever, it needs to happen from here all the way up. It's crucial for men that are going to be playing that role to make sure that things are in place, that safety nets are in place, and they're followed, throughout the whole chain of command.
Actions speak louder than words. Talk less and listen more. I do see a lot of men in the space, especially at a high leadership position, that kind of get on their high horse and want to be recognized for their work in DEI. And I think it's really more important to take a step back and raise up these women that you have in the space, hiring more women, promoting more women, and putting your investment into women in the space. It's also especially a demographic that gets kind of looked past. I think, typically when you think of a gaming demographic, it's men, right? You're basically cutting out, 50% of the population that are fans and that do have this fandom and want to watch and want to be more invested in it.
It's just, just support us. It doesn't really, it sounds like it's like the most simple thing in the world, and it actually is. It doesn't take a lot of effort. Like, if there is a safe space, there is no need to try and invalidate it or nitpick because it is not there for you anyway. A safe space is being set up around a group of marginalized individuals so that they get to do what they want without having to experience the judgment or even harassment that they go through on a daily basis. Because then we can build a foundation from there. And that's it. That's all we need. A safe space is really just a starting point for conversation, for talent, for insight, for discussion, and eventually for progress.